Hi, this is David with Mad Bros Media, and I'm very excited today because I have one of the great singer-songwriters and pioneers of music, Mr. Tommy James. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing fine. It's good to be with you.
Oh, it's amazing. I'm ecstatic. I can't even calm myself down. So, there's many artists today that you have influenced. Who was your influences when you started?
Sure. Well, that's easy, really. The first generation of rock and rollers, you know, Buddy Holly and Little Richard and Elvis, of course, and Gene Vincent, and you know, the first generation rockers. And then you know, it was interesting because when I was 9, I got my first acoustic guitar. That was 1956, and so do the math. And I learned basically everything I could learn on the radio, and started my record collection seriously, buying rock and roll at that time, and then learning everything and playing everything. And of course, I wasn't really a lead guitar player. I was a rhythm guitar player because all I really wanted to do was sing. So the guitar was just to accompany myself. And then gradually I started, the licks I was playing didn't work on an acoustic, and a year later when I was 10 I got my first electric guitar. And so it was a cheap blonde jazz guitar, and but I had an electric guitar, and so I'd learn all the electric riffs as best I could. And then when I was 12 years old, I started playing in a group. My first group was called the Tornadoes, and we were a garage band, literally. And I just turned 13 when we played our very first gig for money, and that was a revelation right there. You know, somebody actually was paying me to strum a guitar. That was too much. And so I've basically had the same job since I was 12. So we'll figure that out. I'm a very old paper boy.
Well, you're lucky to skip through all the burger flipping and all that. So you just got the luck of the draw, I guess. Right?
That's right. And I was very lucky that I was able to, all through junior high and high school, play and actually make money doing it. And I got my first car, and then I could drive to gigs, and worked in a record shop after school where I could promote my band. This wasn't really the question you asked me, but I just sort of figured we ought to.
You can talk about whatever you want. I don't care.
I figured
you're Tommy James, so you can talk about whatever you want.
All right. Well, if I get too long-winded, you just give me a shot in the ribs.
Yeah. But okay. So your music has been featured in countless shows and movies. Do you have a favorite movie that your music was featured in?
Wow. Well, one of my favorites certainly is Dragging the Line that REM did in The Spy Who Shagged Me. And that was a great version that they did. I also, by the way, I loved the version of Crimson and Clover that Prince did. Prince had a #1 album about 3-4 years ago with the first all-digital album. They made no physical product whatsoever. Went #1 with it, and Crimson and Clover was the first song they released from the album. And I loved the way he did it. And I was very, very proud to have Prince do it. And boy, those two. And then going back with Mony Mony, I suppose, Tight Fit, a group out of England, did the best version I ever heard. Although Billy Idol made a lot more money, so I guess I got to qualify that.
Yeah, I was gonna say too. You came up with all these monster hits, and then all these big artists redid them in the '80s, with Tiffany, and then with Billy Idol and all that, and then also with Joan Jett,
right,
doing Crimson and Clover. So that brings me into the third question. You did this amazing duet with Joan Jett, and then Dave Grohl came in just rocking out,
yeah,
and then it's what, Miley's here too, so you did this amazing duet with all them. Do you ever consider doing a duets album? And I don't know who you might be consider featuring on that album.
Well, it's funny because what you're talking about is the the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame show
Yeah,
last year,
yeah.
and it was so amazing to have 4 generations of rock and rollers. Myself, Joan Jett, Dave Grohl, and Miley Cyrus doing Crimson and Clover together on the same stage. It was wild, and what a moment that was. For me, I was very honored. And by the way, next week, Joan Jett is going to be at a show that I'm doing in New Jersey, and we're going to be doing Crimson and Clover again together. But I'm just very flattered and very honored when other groups do my songs. I really am, and I'm very intrigued how other people interpret the music. You know, because when you hear, I'll never forget. I was in a restaurant one night and I'm listening to like elevator music on the speaker system, and I'm hearing the Boston Pops play Money Money, and I'm going, you're kidding, and they did it great. You know, I'm hearing with violins, plink 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 plink, and I'm going, you're kidding me. And it was the Boston Pops, and so Dolly Parton did Crimson and Clover. In fact, we did a duet together. So the answer is yes. I think I would consider doing a.
Yeah, but it seems like your songs stand the test of time, and it just seems like they keep being reintroduced like every decade or just every generation. Is like, you gotta. It's like the next, the kids grow up and then they're like, you gotta hear this Tommy James music, and then they grow up. Then okay, guys, you gotta hear this. So that's how it seems to go.
Yeah, I'm gonna be about 106 when they finally do the last version. Well, listen, I'm very honored. Believe me, that's all I can say. And we've had over 300 cover versions of our songs done.
Wow.
Over the last, I don't know, 25, 30 years.
It's got to be like a record or something.
Well, I guess so, but I just am so blown away by that. And of course, the music, every time another artist does it, the music stays on the radio. So, we've developed a real nice fan base. But the good Lord and the fans are really responsible for the longevity we've had.
Yeah. So my brother and I here at Mad Bros, being big movie buffs, we're excited about a movie being made about your life. Do you have any news about that, and maybe who you might like to play you?
Wow. Yeah, well, the movie is going to be called Me, the Mob, and the Music, and it's taken from the book that I wrote with Martin Fitzpatrick and has been out for several years now. And it's essentially an autobiography with about 2/3 of it devoted to our really crazy and fearful relationship with Roulette Records, the label we had the bulk of our hits on. And of course, the reason that we had a tumultuous experience with them is because, unbeknownst to us when we signed with them, Roulette Records was, in addition to being a good little indie label, was also a front for the Genovese crime family in New York. And of course, that made life really interesting for us. And we couldn't talk about it, and all the shenanigans that were going on up at Roulette, we couldn't say a word about. So we're doing, I Think We're Alone now, while we're doing teeny bop love songs while all this very dark stuff is going on behind us. So we just couldn't say a word about. So finally, when the Roulette regulars, as I call them, died, we figured we could do the book. We were going to write a book called Crimson and Clover and write about the hits and writing. It would have been interesting. Yeah. But we looked at each other. We got about 1/3 of the way into the book and said, if we don't tell the real Roulette story, we're cheating ourselves and everybody else. So it's going to be made into a movie now, produced by Barbara DeFina. And of course, she produced Goodfellas and Casino and The Color of Money and Hugo a couple of years ago with Martin Scorsese, and just a whole string of great movies. Yeah. And so we're real proud to have her produce the movie. And also Matthew Stone did the screenplay, and it really is an amazing screenplay. It's different from the book because I'm getting a hell of an education because watching all this come together, And I have such great respect for screenwriters because you know, unlike a book where you have you tell the story, they got to do it. They got to tell the same story with scenes and pictures and dialogue.
Yeah.
And so it's a very different animal.
Yeah.
And so we're probably looking at another couple of years. But everybody asks me, you know, who do you want to play you? And I have no idea. I'm the worst. They just got to play guitar as bad as I do, you know. That's the only requirement. So we're going to see. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. Well, we'll be on the edge of our seats until that arrives.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. But I want to thank you. It's just been a great honor. I want to thank you so much.
Thank you,
Mr. James.
Well, it's great talking with you.
Thank you for sitting down with us. This has been David with Mad Bros Media.